Hello YouTubers, Alaska Prepper here. In this video we are going to see how mozzarella cheese turns out after it's been freeze dried. I paid $12.99 per 5 pounds for this cheese, but we will see how much we can freeze dry in one batch and compare it to what it would cost for us to purchase it over the counter from an already pre-packaged can of cheese. In addition to mozzarella, we're going to be freeze drying some seasoned ground beef. Now this is the ground beef that we're going to freeze dry, and as you can see, I decided to go with the 3-pack organic ground beef that Costco sells. And each 3-pack costs $22.99. And each 3-pack is roughly 4 pounds. So it comes out to about $4.71 a pound, which is only about 72 cents per pound more than their regular ground beef that's not organic. So I think this is a better way to go. I'm going to start off by seasoning and cooking the ground beef first so that while it's cooking, we can work on the mozzarella cheese. So I'm going to go ahead and do a batch of mozzarella cheese while I'm working on the ground beef, because once it's done and everything, we have to make sure that we put it in the refrigerator, let it cool overnight and all that kind of stuff so that we can get out as much of the fat as we can before we put it on the trays. And I'm going to go ahead and slightly season this meat with just a little bit of taco seasoning, which, believe it or not, is not going to give it a Tex-Mex flavor because I'm using such a small amount in comparison to the 20 pounds of meat that I have in this pot. And in addition, I'll be adding some garlic and onion powder. I've decided to line my trays with parchment paper this time because this is the first time that I try freeze drying cheese, and I don't know if it will, but I just don't want it to stick to the trays. That'll be kind of a mess. And as you can see here, it ended up taking 2.5 bags of cheese. So around 6 pounds of cheese, which comes out to roughly $33 that I spent on the cheese that I'm freeze drying. And I'm really interested to see how much it produces because I know that a number 10 can of freeze-dried mozzarella cheese is pretty pricey. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. As you can see here, I really packed these trays. But you can see that none of the cheese is touching the top, which is a good thing. Now we just need to close the door, make sure that our vacuum hose valve is closed, and we will be turning this cycle on the not frozen. So it's going to take about an extra 6 or 7 hours before it actually starts the freeze drying process. This is the ground beef fully cooked. It took me about 4 or so hours to cook it nice and slow. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to press it down and compress it as much as I can in hopes that once it comes to room temperature and then I place it in the refrigerator overnight, I can remove the top 1 inch or so because it will be saturated with the fat that raised to the top and then solidified while it was in the refrigerator overnight. Although I do think it'll store halfway decent if it's just pure fat with no water, obviously, but I want to keep as much fat out of this meat as I can. Ladies and gentlemen, here is the cheese after it's come out of the freeze dryer. And it looks really good. It dried up really well. I'll show it to you when I put it in the bowl here because we're going to weigh this. And I actually tried a couple of pieces and it's actually really good. It didn't take any of the flavor away or anything. It just tastes like mozzarella that's dry. So it came out very good. And I didn't show you when I took it out of the freeze dryer, but this cycle only took 26 hours. And obviously this food here, cheese, didn't have a lot of water in it to begin with. So let's go ahead and put it in the bowl and weigh it so we can do a little AP math on the cheese to see if cheese is worth it. Look at that, ladies and gentlemen. That is a lot of cheese. This tells me that the cheese that I used to freeze dry, the one that I bought from Costco, did not have that much water in it already. If you all remember, we used up about 2.5 bags of the 2.5 pound bags. So we use around 6 pounds, let's say 6.5 pounds. So we have 3 pounds and 8 ounces, 3.5 pounds of cheese left. And that is great news. I have a feeling that we're going to do really well when we do our AP math to compare what it cost us to freeze dry this cheese and what it would cost us to actually buy it from a third party already freeze dried. And here is the beef, ladies and gentlemen. This is the ground beef. And as you can see, there's a few spots that look like they have some fat on it. And I'm going to go ahead and take those pieces out. I'm not going to package those for long term, but I will use them along with the mozzarella that we freeze dried. And I'm going to combine them, and they're going to be part of my dinner for tonight. Now here's all of the beef that I crumbled up, and I had to put a big piece on top because there's no room for it on the bowl. But you can see here that it's 2 pounds, 15 ounces. But what you don't see to the side is I have about 1 or 2 ounces that I took out, those little pieces that had fat. So we're going to call this 3 pounds even. And here is everything that I got from that ground beef, ladies and gentlemen, except for a little bit that I'm going to go ahead and try out tonight. There you go. That's what's left over, all of the little crumbles. And it made 4 bags, 4 of the Harvest Right bags, and I stuffed them. And there you can see the mozzarella cheese that I kept in order to use it with this beef in conjunction with some of the hearty lasagna here from Nutrient Survival. And I think this is going to be a great combination. Actually, I know because I have done this before, except with fresh meat and fresh cheese. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and measure the amount of meat that I put in there, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and do a ratio of 2 to 1. So whatever I put in meat, I think I'm going to go ahead and put 1 ounce of meat in here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put 2 ounces of water for the 1 ounce of meat that I'm going to go ahead and put in here. And I'm going to do the same thing with the cheese. With the cheese, I'm going to go ahead and add about 1 ounce or so. And then I'm going to go ahead and add about 2 ounces of water along with the 2 ounces that I'm using for the meat. So right now we're up to about 4 ounces of water that we're going to add to this, along with the water that we're going to need to rehydrate the hearty lasagna. So as you can see here, as I add the hearty lasagna, I'm going to add 1 serving, which is roughly 2 ounces of the freeze-dried. It's more like 2.5 ounces or so of the freeze-dried hearty lasagna. So 2 ounces should call it pretty good. And then we'll just go ahead and heat up 1 cup of water in our jet boil here. Get it up nice and hot to boiling. Pour it in there. And then we're going to wait probably around 6-7 minutes with the cover on. And we'll come back and see what it looks like. All right, let's see what it looks like. Hey, this looks not too bad. I think that the finely ground beef kind of like made it look a little more brown than, you know, the red that you're used to with like a pasta sauce. But look at that. Look at the cheese. The cheese melted perfectly. And ladies and gentlemen, this looks pretty darn good to me. So let's go ahead and give it a try and see what it tastes like. And like I said, I've had this, but look at the cheese. The cheese just looks really good. So I'm pretty excited. I haven't had it like this before, as far as, you know, with the freeze-dried meat and cheese, but I've had it before in this same manner. And I have to say that it tastes pretty darn good. And here is all of the cheese that I bagged up as well. So this was a pretty successful batch, or couple of batches in my opinion. Let's do a really quick bit of AP math to see if it's worth, you know, bagging up cheese. And let's take a look and see at what the ground beef costs in the over-the-counter market to see if it's worth doing as well. I'm pretty sure it is, but we'll do the math just to make sure. So my ground beef, which came out to a total of 15 pounds after I took out that top layer with all the fat, made 3 pounds of freeze-dried ground beef. And at $4.71 per pound times 15 pounds, that comes out to $70.65. I added $10 for the cost of the oxygen absorbers and the Mylar bags, for the cost of the little bit of oil that the freeze dryer uses during every batch, and the energy that I expended using the freeze dryer. And it came out to a total of $80.65. When you take the $80.65 and divide it by 48 ounces, which represents the 3 pounds of freeze-dried ground beef that I made, it comes out to $1.68 per ounce. Now, this is the cheapest one that I could find. I went on Amazon. Last time I used Mountain House, but this is the cheapest ground beef that I could find, and it came in at $59.99 for 27.5 ounces. $59.99 divided by 27.5 is a total of $2.18 per ounce. Now, when you take $2.18, subtract $1.68, you have a savings of 50 cents per ounce when you do it yourself using the freeze dryer. So for every 15-pound batch that you end up getting 3 pounds of meat out of, you're saving $24 altogether. Now, depending on how much you use your freeze dryer, ladies and gentlemen, I plan on using mine non-stop until the wheels fall off. Would depend on how fast you can recoup the investment that you made in the freeze dryer itself. Now, for those of you that did not watch the last video, this freeze dryer that I have is the small one, and it cost me $2,295, which means that if I wanted to recoup my investment of the freeze dryer just doing ground beef in the same form that I just did it in, it would take me almost 100 batches before I can recoup the investment that I made in the freeze dryer. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the cheese. My cheese came out to about 6.5 pounds before we freeze dried it, and it ended up making 3.5 pounds of freeze dried cheese at a cost of $33.77 for the cheese, and of course the $10 for the extra expenses, which came out to a total of $43.77. When you divide the $43.77 by the 56 ounces of cheese that it made, it comes out to 78 cents per ounce. The Nutri-Store freeze-dried cheese is $42.99 for a 31-ounce number 10 can. And when we take the Nutri-Store cheese at $42.99 divided by 31 ounces, it comes out to a total of $1.38 per ounce. When you take the 138 and subtract 78 from it, you have a savings of 60 cents per ounce if you freeze dry yourself. Meaning that if you do a 56-ounce batch at a 60-cent serving per ounce, you're saving roughly $33.60 per batch. So there you go, ladies and gentlemen. This is the AP math. Every time that I do a batch of freeze-dried food, no matter what it is, it's turning out that the investment is worth it as long as you continue to use that freeze dryer and you get your money's worth out of it. I am well en route to recoup my entire investment, probably within the next 6 months or so. So I hope you all got something out of this, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining in. Remember to be good to each other. When good people do good things happen. Remember to reach one, teach one, and repeat. If we all did this, the world would be a better place, and you know that it will be a better place. Many blessings to all of you and your families. I'm Alaska Prepper. I am out.
Nutrient survival isn't just survival food. It's special ops grade. Built to the nutritional standards of the U.S. Special Ops and packed with 40 essential nutrients. Formulated to sustain energy, sharpen focus, and keep you and your family thriving during any emergency. Real food, real ingredients. Oh, and a 25-year shelf life. Our meals will kick your taste buds in the mouth and have them coming back for dessert. Yeah, we've got that too. So whether you're digging in or bugging out, you don't just survive an emergency situation, you thrive in it. Nutrient survival, feed your freedom.